without ore sorting, our grade is on average 2x our peers or our comps. In terms of our permitting process, we've got minimal permitting requirements. We believe it'll be streamlined. We know it's private patented land, and we've got the infrastructure in place as opposed to perhaps something that would have a larger capex in terms of restart. So in terms of discount, I would expect that we're probably trading about a minimum 3x discount relative to where we should be compared to our peers. That will happen through education and execution.
Good afternoon. We have Ali Haji, CEO of American Tungsten. How are you today?
Doing well, Steve. How are you?
Good. Well, a lot of stuff going on in our world, huh?
Mm-hmm. Certainly there is.
Well, a lot of stuff going on with you guys too. If you can just tell me about Tungsten, American Tungsten, about what you guys got going on there.
Sure. American Tungsten is listed on the Canadian Securities Exchange under ticker TUNG. We have two assets, the STAR project in BC, which is primarily iron ore. We also have the Ima Mine in Idaho. That is a tungsten past producer, which we believe has a quicker path to production than most, if not all, tungsten mines in North America today. And it is the primary focus for the company. So it's an asset that's been around for a while. It's not greenfield, like we've seen with other high risk projects. It's had work done on it since 1881 by the Bradley Mining Group. They worked till about 1979. Inspiration, which is owned by Anglo, worked on it till about 1982. And then Gentor Resources took control of the project between 2008 and 2010. And our focus, of course, today is to bring that back online to production. So we are in the midst of a number of activities, but I don't want to go too far down that conversation before you ask all of the other relevant questions that you may have in mind, Steve.
Well, if you can tell us about the jurisdiction of the projects, what you guys are finding a little bit more in terms of the grade and what you guys are digging up, and love to hear about the plan.
Yeah, so Idaho is a fantastic mining jurisdiction. There are a number of other majors there. Perpetua Resources, I believe Centerra is in the midst of doing some work to start up their Thompson Creek project down in Idaho. For us, we've had historical resources to the tune of about 350,000 ton, give or take, at about 0.5% tungsten oxide. So that's, generally speaking, higher grade than most around the world. And the fact that it is an underground mine with the infrastructure in place, the adits are there, everything's in good shape, and it's on patented private land, that of course makes permitting a hell of a lot quicker than perhaps a new operation. So it is a project we're looking to ultimately bring to production. I think having spoken with our technical team and also putting together the white paper for the DoD, the expectation is that it would take about $30 million US in CapEx to switch it back online in about 18 months, which would ultimately lead to about 10% of domestic demand being met by the Ima mine. So it is quick in terms of mining terms and sort of timelines, but it is one that, given it's a past producer with the infrastructure in place, we're very excited to advance it. In fact, so much so that I'll be out there in a couple of weeks with the rest of the technical team, walking the property and sort of getting a lay of the land, so to speak.
Can you tell us about the infrastructure you do have in place? And
yeah, sure. We have, we're a cabin on site. There's no mill, but there are mills within tens of miles from our asset that we could leverage in the future. There is power not too far away. We're very close to the town of Chalice, so we could have a workforce that we could drive out of there. We've got, I mentioned patented land, so no issues there. The fact the water table is significantly lower where we're looking to operate at the first phase makes things a lot simpler in that perspective. But we will begin water sampling efforts in a couple of weeks' time in order to advance the permitting process. We've got a cabin on site, which is always exciting, right? You can spend a night or two there. We've also got some buildings that house some of the equipment that we think will have to be rehabilitated to some degree, but for the most part, the infrastructure is sound with roads leading up to the adits and the tunnel.
So you are you got a permitting, you're expecting that to go on pretty soon, and what's your timeline and expectation for that to come in place?
So with the patented land, the NEPA permitting process, we believe will be rather quick. We don't expect it to be a lengthy process. To begin with, there will be a fair bit of underground mining, so you're not disturbing the surface at all. It's not open pit. And so permitting from our perspective and our belief, having spoken with the experts in the fields, we believe that won't be too far off. So, 6 to 8 months, give or take. In terms of production profile and platform coming online, that's about 18 months. So we're on track to start to get permitting in place and ultimately move to production. But permitting issues are not a challenge for us at this time, thankfully.
Well, Ali, I am curious about the history of the assets you have there, and curious as to the potential, the reward, as we assess the risk reward. I mean, what kind of potential we're looking at?
If you look at, well, let's start with tungsten. I think a lot of our viewers or listeners, and myself included, up until about 2 years ago, perhaps would not have known very much about tungsten. Sort of what I learned in high school chemistry, which is it was used for filaments in light bulbs, and it was used in that nature because it is the hardest metal on the Mohs scale. It has one of the highest melting points at 2,500 degrees Celsius. And it's ultimately more resilient than perhaps a lot else out there. It's the hardest metal outside. You have diamond and then you have tungsten. So it is a very critical metal in that regard. It's used in various components that allow you to have carbide drill bits that can drill into different surfaces, especially in the mining space. It's used in aerospace to strengthen hulls. It's used in defense for armor piercing or armor. It's also used to build the casings of missiles and ballistic missiles as well. So tungsten is a very critical metal. It's something that has been produced historically in North America for quite some time. However, in and around 2008, China began flooding the market with cheaper tungsten. And so a lot of mining projects around the world that were tungsten based started to go offline. And China today processes about 90% of the world's tungsten. They produce about 80% of the tungsten for global consumption. However, China, given the current environment, the political environment, has opted to stop exports of all tungsten. So come January 1st next year, there will be no tungsten leaving China. And as a result, it's imperative that we start to bring production online. The Ima Mine that we speak of today, the Bradley Mining Group worked on it between 1881 and 1979. It was a past producer. It's also rich in moly and silver. Those credits, of course, have not been factored into anything that I speak to you about, but they will be when we put out our 43-101 and resource estimate. Inspiration, which was run by or owned by Anglo American, worked on the project from 1979 to 1982. And then Gentor came in from 2008 to 2010 during the time that China started to flood the market. So back in the envelope, we've got numbers. The last resource about 350,000 ton at 0.5%, as I mentioned. But we believe that to be, I don't want to say understated, but it is inclusive of the work that was done and available at the time. We have a number of logs that we need to digitize. So we're undertaking that effort right now, digitizing the data. We'll be contracting our QP to bring on a measured resource estimate as well as the 43-101. So we expect that number to be larger. And in terms of production, as I said, the Ima Mine with the production profile that was put in front of the DoD would fulfill 10% of US demand. So a significant chunk would come out of there. And given, close to power, roads, and a town, Chalice, for example, that has the necessary individuals to bring online into our workforce, it's one that can come online in very quick order. And as a result, we have approached various government entities, including the DoD, to look at helping us fund and develop this project that we believe, once again, could be the quickest to bring tungsten online in North America.
A lot of exciting stuff happening. One of our listeners think about in terms of investing is, who are we investing behind? If you can talk a bit about yourself, about the team you have in place around you.
Of course. So I've been recently appointed CEO of American Tungsten. My prior roles were in mining as well. Prior to that, I worked in asset management for a global company named Invesco in various capacities, more focused on M&A and operational excellence. I joined mining about 8 years ago, started as an advisor to bring online a gold acquisition via Centerra in Mongolia. I then started a lithium company during the tail end of the last lithium cycle. We acquired about 140,000 hectares globally. We have since signed on a JV agreement with a foreign entity that will develop our assets and ultimately keeping the story going and alive. But in my mining experience, I've been fortunate enough to meet some very intelligent people that are in various commodities. And so when I was looking at American Tungsten, the first thing I did, of course, was look at the team. And the team is extremely sound. So Murray Nye, who was the prior CEO, has built mines in the US. He's an experienced geologist that has also helped finance various projects. And so having an individual like that on the bench was a huge indication as to how successful this project would be. Austin Vincer, our VP Geology, is a board member as well, and he's located just outside of the mine, about 2-hour drive from the mine. An Idaho native, understands the state well enough to operate in it, but also as a geologist, an excellent geologist that's put together our exploration programs and continues to identify additional assets for us to acquire. We've got technical advisors like Finley Baker, Bill Breen, Dave Sabrin. These are individuals that have all worked at the various Anton operations in North America until they were shuttered. So they have good experience looking at tungsten assets, bringing tungsten assets online and ensuring they are in fact producing at economically viable numbers. And having that sound technical tungsten team was a big drive for me. Beyond that, today is being May 5th. I'm not sure when this will be published, but we've looked at our directors and our governance structure. And since I have joined the company about 3 weeks ago, I look to bring on some more pedigree with respect to what we're trying to achieve. And that is, of course, showing that we have credibility in mine building, but also ensuring that we have the right people that can approach and liaise with the government when we're looking for that non-dilutive funding. So as of this morning, we've added Dan Nicholas to our board of directors. Dan has about a 45-year tenure in his professional career. 30 years of that was spent in investment banking with names like Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, blue chip investment banks. Following that, he joined the Department of Energy, where he led the loan program to the tune of $40 billion. He currently is a strategic advisor to EY, where he advises public and private companies with respect to granting or receiving government grants that are non-dilutive. So very sort of transformational individual that will allow us to open up additional avenues of capital that are non-dilutive to the company. An individual that has worked with the DOE and various other entities in the US. And I think that is imperative given their political climate. And given this is a low capex, fast path to production on private patented land, I suspect his experience and expertise will be invaluable to us. We continue to look to add additional individuals to our board of directors. And currently, as far as growing the team, I think we're a news story, as your viewers may or may not know. It's only been a year or so, if that, as far as American Tungsten's existence. But we are keen to build our bench and commence execution as soon as possible.
Exciting stuff. If you can tell us a bit, you mentioned this a bit, but if you can tell us about your equity ownership, what percentage insiders, institutions own, can you share about your top shareholders? And then along with that, if you can talk about your corporate structure, how many shares you have outstanding, fully diluted in your cap table.
Of course. We've got about 24 million shares out, which is very tight for a junior, with 2 assets, one in BC, as I mentioned, and of course our asset that we're primarily focused on today, which is our Ima Mine in Idaho. We've got about 80% of retail shareholders, which is, I think, a good number in terms of having float and liquidity. 20% or so are within sticky institutional hands. We've got our president and CEO. He's got a number of shares. I'm in the process of acquiring shares myself, given I have been added to the company as opposed to founding the company. We've got a fund out of Vancouver by the name of K2 Capital. They've got about 5 or 7% as well. The goal today, as far as growing organically for us, we've raised about $5 million into the till, still a very tight cap table. The goal currently is to bring in some more retail capital. In terms of timing to be determined, the treasury is still in very good shape, so there is no urgency to do so. And then ultimately in the fall or sort of late fall, bring in the institutional rounds to come alongside the government entities that may or may not grant capital to us to ultimately move towards development. And as I mentioned prior, it's about 30 million capex for production. And so bringing on those institutions, there are a number of institutions that I've dealt with throughout my career in the past with my different appointments, I should say, that we know would be interested, and that kind of ticket would make sense. So for now, as I mentioned, the treasury is in sound state. We're healthy. If there is a retail pop-up to be had, we may consider it at the right price, right quantum. And then come fall, the goal is to bring in that institutional cornerstone investor, as well as investors in the tungsten space. Look to get some offtake agreements in terms of prepay, and then start to develop our asset.
Can I ask you about the capital, how much money you have and your plans to grow?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we've got about $1.5 million in the bank right now. And I think that's sufficient for us to get through the summer and perhaps even a tad longer than that. There's a bit of rehabilitation work that we've got to do on site, like making sure the roads are in good working order, a bit of rehabilitation on the adits to make sure they are safe for entry. And we've got drill pads there that were put together by Gentor. So we'll use those as underground platforms for our drilling. We do have an exploration plan in place that will probably run about, if we were to conclude it, between $2 and $2.5 million. So that would require a bit of a top up. But our focus, as I've said, is not to grow our resource, because we know once we digitize the data that we have, we'll see a bigger picture here with the larger resource. We have a mine plan that allows us to bring online significant production to the tune of 10% of US demand at that 30 million capex. So we're healthy for now. We've got to continue down the permitting route and rehabilitation route. We will start some exploration this summer. You've got to take advantage of the warm weather in mining, and then crack on with that development capital in the fall.
Can you tell us more about the plan? You mentioned the fall and bringing stuff on. People, you got a lot of good stuff going on, but as next quarter, the summer, I mean, what's the plan moving forward? Is there any news that we can be looking forward to that you can share, and what milestones should we be looking for?
That's a great question, Stephen. I think, you can't just sit idle on your hands, especially as miners. We've got to be able to deliver to the market with respect to what we have promised. So the first step, of course, was to grow the team and ensure that we have credibility and validation. We've done that with the first step today with Dan Nicholas, and we're in the process of doing that further. So the market can expect to see some more news in terms of the board changes that we're anticipating, making across the team to give us more validation and credibility. You will also see a 43-101 in the next sort of 4 weeks being delivered to market with respect to Ima. We're hoping that includes the measured resource estimate. It may come a week or two after, but the goal is that it gets delivered in and around the same time. I will be on site May 20th alongside my technical team. The goal there is to review the infrastructure that's in place, have some government relationship conversations, including the mayors of the local municipalities, educate the local population with respect to what we're trying to achieve. I think social license is paramount, and that often gets ignored. And then look to ensure that we have teams on site to do the exploration over the course of the summer. Come the fall, as I mentioned, the goal is to start that development program. So ensuring that we are in fact gearing up to get ready for production. We have a couple of technology partners that we're looking at today with respect to beneficiation that may get announced in due course in and around that time in the fall. But the ultimate goal today is let's get production online. Let's bring something up to surface. Let's begin to ship that to mills nearby and ultimately have those contracts whereby we have our product being sold to the relevant markets in the United States that require it today.
Ali, it seems like you guys are selling at a discount.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree with that? And what kind of potential are we looking at for investors here?
So absolutely, we are trading at a discount. I think that has to do with a number of reasons. One, we are a brand new story. We've only been around for about a year or less. And we're in the process of telling our story further. This is why we're having this conversation. Next week, I will be in Fort Lauderdale as well as Atlanta, meeting with prospective investors, telling our story again. And the purpose here is correct. We are trading at a vast discount relative to our peers. And if you look at our presentation on our website, which is AmericanTungstenCorp.com, you will see a comp table at the far end of it. And if you start to look at the grade that we have without any ore sorting, which is sort of a newer technology being adopted by various juniors today, It's a low capex, allows you to somewhat double your grade. But without ore sorting, our grade is on average 2x our peers or our comps. In terms of our permitting process, we've got minimal permitting requirements. We believe it'll be streamlined. We know it's private patented land, and we've got the infrastructure in place as opposed to perhaps something that would have a larger capex in terms of restart. So in terms of discount, I would expect that we're probably trading about a minimum 3x discount relative to where we should be compared to our peers. That will happen through education and execution. And as we start to execute upon our 43-101, our measured resource estimate, and start to actually tell the market who we are and what we're doing, you will see some organic growth in our valuation there. And that will ultimately be the driving force that dictates what the ticket or the price would be for those institutions looking to come in the fall to back us for development.
Well, Ali, I am not an investor yet for my viewers. Just wanted to be transparent about that, but that may change. I am going to be in the Atlanta conference as well. I'm looking forward to meeting you and learning more about it in person. But if our followers have any questions, can you tell us where you're trading and how do they reach you if they have any questions?
Of course. So we're trading on the Canadian Securities Exchange under ticker TUNG, TUNG. On the OTC, we're trading on the QB under ticker DEMRF. That was the prior name of the company. And as far as reaching me or reaching the company, I'm one of those odd CEOs that doesn't mind phone calls from any investor, big, large, small, doesn't matter. Present, future, prospective, speculator, does not quite matter to me. So my email address is ahaji at our domain, which is americantungstencorp.com. Feel free to drop me an email at any time. My cell phone number, I believe, is included in our press releases. So take a look at our last press release, and that is my cell phone number on there. Happy to speak with anybody interested, invested, or prospective.
Well, Ali, enjoy the time. Looking forward to following your story, and thanks for coming on the show.
I appreciate it, Steve.